So today we're going to talk about the inner and outer tie rod. Some people don't know the difference, and sometimes for the group, I'm going to break down some very common stuff that for most of you guys, you already know everything about this. Um, this may or may not be for you. And of course, if I misspeak or if my statements are not factual or whatever, feel free to correct me. So when we got a stock machine, modified machine, whatever, um, one of the most sacrificial parts that we have is the tie rod setup. So this piece here is called the outer tie rod. Now, this is going to wear out before anything on the front end with suspension, especially if you start adding bigger tires. When you add portals or you add 35s, 33s, anytime you add more weight to the end of the axle, the end of the wheel, you're going to wear out your tie rods faster. They are a sacrificial part. This is going to wear out, and you're going to have to swap it out. They just wear out. It is what it is. So this part here is called the outer tie rod, and this is called the inner tie rod. So the inner tie rod on my last machine, I drove for close to 6,000 miles with 35s and portals, and I only bent one of these one time. I was doing around 70 through the desert, and it's actually right after I installed my SDI shocks. When you upgrade from factory shocks to higher end, higher quality, better flow shocks, you drive a lot faster than you probably should. I normally was around 45 or 50 in this particular area. I added my shocks, and it was amazing, the ride quality difference. It gave me a false sense of security to a certain point because I drove way faster through the same areas, and I hit a rut way harder than I should have, and I bent this sucker. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that make aftermarket tie rods, okay? They, instead of this little boot and this little ball joint here, they have what's called a Heim joint. I don't have one, or else I would show you guys what a Heim joint is. Significantly stronger. I mean, you ain't breaking a Heim joint. I guess you could if you hit something hard enough, but they're tough, and typically it is all one piece. So here's the consequence of going with a Heim joint. Yes, it's stronger. The inner tie rod itself is probably twice as thick, twice the diameter. Very, very heavy. So now let's reverse. I'm going through the same situation, right? And I'm doing 65, 70 miles an hour, and I hit a sharp rut. Now I can't bend this. This new tie rod that has a Heim joint is almost indestructible. I mean, those things are built for, they are tough. So if this doesn't bend, what's going to give? My steering rack. I didn't upgrade my steering rack. So now, instead of this being what I would call a sacrificial part, this is no longer a sacrificial part that costs 80 bucks. Now, my sacrificial part is gone. And if I hit a sharp rut or big rock, I'm talking hard, it's going to take some effort. Well, now I think it's like 1,500 bucks for a steering rack. They're real expensive. So now instead of an $80 part, now I got to spend $1,500 on a steering rack because I wanted to upgrade my tie rod, my inner tie rod, outer tie rod to a Heim joint. It kind of makes sense, but honestly, I would rather replace an $80 part if I hit something hard than a $1,500 part that I can't get. A lot of times when you call Polaris and you have the gearbox, good luck. I mean, I've heard of people waiting months for those things. So I'm a big fan of this. Now, I'm gonna go with long travel on my new build. I don't have that luxury. So when you go to a mid travel, long travel, it doesn't matter if it's HDR, Thumper Fab, whomever, they all use, I believe, to my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, you guys can correct me, they use Heim joint tie rod ends. So there's a kind of a pro and con to that scenario. I'm eliminating a sacrificial part for better ride quality. So you have to kind of weigh your options. You know, if you go with long travel, just know that you're going to be upgrading your tie rod. You got to make it longer because you're making your rig wider. So this is no longer, it wouldn't reach from your steering rack to your knuckle. So they have to replace them. And I'm pretty sure that all the long travel setups all have Heim joints. Again, if I had one, I'd show it to you guys for those that aren't familiar. But if you're not doing a long travel kit and you're just doing, let's say, portals, this is great. Leave it stock. Let this be your sacrificial part. Bend it, break it, swap out another one. I've got like 3 of these. I thought I ordered one as a spare, and I clicked on the wrong button. So I've got a few extra. I'll probably give them away at some point. I don't need them, and I hate sending stuff back, so I might do a giveaway or something for some tie rods for you guys. And then that's pretty much all this video is about, is the inner and the outer tie rod. So that if you break something, if you notice that you bend this part here, oh, that's the inner tie rod. Or if you pick up your wheel and you give it a little wiggle, could be your tie rod end, could also be the ball joint on the bottom. You have to kind of know what to look for on something like that. And if you don't have a clear understanding what all this stuff is, before you start throwing parts at it, you know, probably have somebody look at it for you. If you take it off, I mean, I've taken off my tie rod end before, and man, that sucker was so loose. It just, I would say that if your steering wheel shakes a lot, going at slow speeds, and you have a lot of play like this, your culprit is probably going to be the outside tie rod, not the inner tie rod, but the outside, because this part here is going to wear down and cause your steering to be loose. Well, it's one of the reasons. So it's unfortunate, you know, you jack it up and then you give it the little wiggle. It could be the nut, it could be a lot of different things, but typically this is going to be your weakest joint and your most sacrificial part. When these wear out, you just take your mark, you thread it off, thread a new one in, and you're done. It's pretty simple for some people. For others, obviously they're not going to worry about it, but I have been asked a lot, hey, what's the difference between an inside tie rod and an outside tie rod? This is it right here. So if you guys ever have any questions, send me a message and I'll do a video on it, and just to help you with your better knowledge and understanding of how our expeditions are built and just how certain things work, because not all of us have that mechanical inclination in their brains. I know I don't. I have very, very, very little mechanical knowledge, but I do know some basics, and some of those basics I will share with you guys. So I hope this helps, especially for the people that don't know a lot about this stuff. Knowledge is power. You know, the more knowledge you have, the better it is. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. God bless, and go get them.